Hi, it's Darren from SimNation again. Wanted to do a video around training camp within Draft Day Sports College Football 2023, which of course is a Wolverine Studios title. Training camp is pretty important in the grand scheme of things. Maybe not as important as game planning or recruiting, but you can really screw your team up if you don't understand what you're doing. For those who are not familiar with the game, training camp normally happens between the end of recruiting National Signing Day and week one of the regular season. In theory, it's the best time to change position of a player. It is also the time where you have the most opportunity to improve a player, or for some players, they'll digress. Um, so there are a couple different ways to do it, but I think the first thing that you need to do is look at your roster and start identifying the changes you want to make. I have Texas Tech up in front of me. For those of you not aware, Texas Tech is my um, project, to say, if you will, say that. Texas Tech was abysmal last season. Part of the reason being is just the CPU had completely mismanaged them. So I took them over as a project, scored a pretty big win or two during the regular season, and then everything went to hell in a handbasket. And then I cut probably 60 to 70% of the team at the end of the season last year. Don't recommend doing that, by the way, but I needed to, because I needed to start getting the team under control and start melding them to what I want. So whenever we have these videos, I always talk about system. I always talk about philosophy. I think it's very important, even in training camp, to understand the system you're trying to build and the philosophy you're trying to build towards. In my case, I ultimately want Texas Tech to be a run and shoot offense. Um, Probably not going to get there this season, but on defense, I want them to be able to compete in the Big 12 with the big dogs. So Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Baylor. I know I'm forgetting one or two in there, but those are kind of the big dogs. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State really being the biggest, and then Texas right behind them. So, in order to do that, I'm going to have fundamentally a very strong line that can get penetration and get at the quarterback, as well as disrupt running plays. I'm going to have fairly fast linebackers, and of course, I'm going to have some shutdown secondary. So as I start to look at that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my roster. Um, and I'm going to start thinking about position changes. So traditionally, the way that I look at position changes is if somebody's really fast and I lack a secondary, or somebody's really strong and I lack a line or a defensive line, I'm going to start looking at those things first. So quarterback, the only time I would ever really mess with your quarterbacks is if you have a really good running quarterback who you're willing to invest in. So, for instance, none of these guys have the speed in which it would make sense for me to transition them to a running back, fullback, wide receiver, even a cornerback, really. So I'm going to largely leave them alone. Now, I am going to take some mental notes here about who I probably want to have be the emphasis of my coaches to focus on throughout the season. And what I'm looking for here for that is work ethic, above all else, really, work ethic. Because if someone sucks at work ethic, it's not worth investing your coach's time. In this case, I'm going to probably have them focus on Oral Hargrave, who's probably going to be my starting quarterback this year, even though he's a freshman. Running back, I traditionally look here for wide receivers, cornerbacks, maybe occasionally a tight end or a linebacker. And the way I judge that is, do I have anyone who has decent tackling skills and that has a good agi or other in speed? Um, I kind of need my running back, so I'm probably not going to screw with this too much, but I will say that it is intriguing to me to think about potentially moving Uribe, who's a freshman, over to Uribe or Peebles over to a cornerback, because that 95 speed is going to be pretty substantial. They've got good hands. They're not good tacklers, but for a shutdown corner, do I really kind of kill, right? And the reason why I may favor Peebles over Uribe is because of the 87 agility. Now, it's not founded, but Frankie and I both have a perception that agility drives interceptions. So I know going in that if I move Peebles, he's not going to be a good cornerback because I'm pretty certain he has nothing there. So the reason for moving him now is he'll get the training camp bonus. And it will kick his cornerback up to maybe about 20, maybe 25, maybe even higher, depending on these traits. Now, Uribe has a work ethic of 98. He's got a work ethic of 35. He's not going to do well in training camp. So that's probably the predominant reason why I'm not going to move him. But for Uribe, I am going to move him. So I'm going to go play bio. I'm going to change this and I'm going to switch him over. He's now a cornerback. So I'm going to go in with 4 running backs. That should be enough for me. Worst case is I'll move a fullback. None of my fullbacks really are people I want to move. I do like Bonilla a lot, but I'm not going to move him. I may be changing my mind. I may be making him a tight end. Let's see if he has that. So his work ethic is 96. He's going to benefit from it. He's not really got anything as a tight end, but that is a pretty good tight end right though. Um, we'll go ahead and move him. So I'm going to move him because I think that he will be pretty good at tight end. I know my roster fairly well, so I can make some of these moves. But for a lot of you, you should be bouncing back and forth to say, okay, if I move him to tight end, what else do I have? He's easily going to be the fastest. He's got some of the best hands. But what I may want to consider is moving some people around on this to move somebody back to fullback. So I'm not going to move Mott. Actually, I will move Mott. He's undersized. Uh, so I'm going to look through here in a minute and I'm going to go, who am I moving to fullback? Because going through the season with 2 fullbacks, unless I'm just going to run single back, which I may, isn't probably going to work. I don't really want to do anything here. I've got good guards. I've got 1, 2, 3 viable pass blockers. There's not a reason to do that. Same with tackle. I may move someone at tackle actually to create depth. But in theory, I've got at least 2 good tackles and then another one that is serviceable. At center, I've got 1 good center. I'm probably going to want to move a guard though, because I have more guards than anyone anywhere else. So I want to think about this a little bit. I'll move Pratt. But what I can do is I can actually look to see have any of them played center before, and then make a call. I'm not moving Ingle no matter what. So right now it looks like Settles may be the right guy to move. I'm probably not going to move Sherman because I probably need him where he is. Stout, no. Wood, no. So we'll move Settles. Just double check that, and then move him over to center, and now he is a center. And that gives me depth. So now I have 3 centers, which that'll help. So we talked about this before. What I'm going to look at for the person who I want to move back to fullback, I'm probably going to look at someone like, I don't want to move Kennedy because Kennedy's got good speed. And he's also a good blocker. Mitchell makes the most sense to me of all of them because he's kind of the slowest and he will probably do the best at fullback. So now I'm back to 3 fullbacks, which is kind of what I want. Different people have different thought process. So what I'm looking at is what my wide receivers is. It's gonna be a little rough of a season for me because I don't have fast wide receivers. Now, what I could do here is I could move one of my running backs over to wide receiver, but candidly, they don't got the hands for it, so it's not a good fit though. I could look at tight end and I could see maybe should I move one of these guys, but again, they don't have the hands, so I'm gonna leave my wide receivers alone. Now at cornerback, as you can see, is I've got a pretty good spread of cornerbacks. Moving Uribe is going to give me kind of a shutdown corner once he learns the skill. He's going to get a lot of penalties this season. So, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit, but in the long run, it should be worth it. So what I want to look here is I want to see what I have at free safety and strong safety. So I got a good fast guy there. Everyone else is kind of meh. Strong safety, meh. I don't have the speed. So what I'm going to look at now is I'm going to find a cornerback who has decent tackling skills, who's also fast. So Quinones looks like that guy. So we're going to look here and see. He's played strong safety, so I could move him to strong safety. Um, his tackling's not great for strong safety, but it's not horrible either. And he's a freshman, so I would almost advocate a lot of times trying to move underclassmen, although it's okay to move people in the upper class as well. So as you notice, he's now over there. He's a strong safety. We'll go back and look at that in a moment. I could move another guy if I wanted to, but I want to hold off because I want to look at my linebackers. Generally, it's not a bad class for linebackers. This is actually a pretty good profile, although a bit slow. But none of the cornerbacks are good enough tacklers. What I'd be looking at here is strong safety to see if I've got a person who has 60 tackling and I don't. Look at free safety again to see if I've got someone. So I do have Lunsford, who's a freshman, who's an 86. He's small for linebacker though. But let's see if he's ever played linebacker. He hasn't. Well, Lunsford, you're now linebacker. So I'm gonna move him. He's a little bit small, but ideally, if I play him in coverage, I think he'll be fine. I moved him mostly because he's one of the few people I have that actually has good tackling skill. So that matters. So now he's a linebacker. He's better than some of the guys I've got. So I've got some good depth at linebacker now. We looked at corner, we got good depth there. Now I'm going to look at defensive tackle. I tend to be a speed rusher. Now it's going to be a problem for me this year because I only have two with Bunko and Marvin. Um, the other ones are probably more of bull rushers, but Edwards is a bull rusher. Um, I don't think I'm gonna play with. I think I'm gonna leave that alone. And I've got good speed at defensive end, so generally I think I'm in pretty good shape right now. I think I have the right depth. I'll look here real quick and see. Do I have any glaring holes on my depth chart? I don't, so I'm good. Now, I don't tend to redshirt people at the beginning of the season. I tend to redshirt at the end of the season. You can do that here. Like if I wanted to, I could redshirt Doris. I'm not going to. So the next thing is um, just going back and taking another quick look at my roster. I also want to look at the staff because I want to see what they're good at because this is going to matter here in a second. So Broughton, let's see what he's good at. He's good with skill positions and good with the offensive line. That's good. Um, Locklear is kind of sucky in general, so don't know what I'm going to do with him. Probably have him focus on someone who's physical. Probably should fire him. Defensive backs will be for Hine. So what I'm going to look at here is going back to the roster. I moved a couple people, so I'm probably going to have my staff in training focus on them. So there are different ways to do training. I tend to do default. I'm going to warn you is do not ever go over 22. If you go over 22, you're asking for it because you're going to enter the season with a bunch of people hurt or not able to play because they're fatigued. If you do that, you got to back them off to like 18 to get them out of that scenario. But the reason I looked at my coaches is right here. So in this case, I'm probably going to choose for my head coach to mentor the quarterback who I want to start, which is Hargrove. My offensive coordinator, he's not good at all, but I'm going to have him focus on linemen. And I'm just going to pick one at random in Sherman. Defensive coordinator, I'm going to want him to focus on Uribe because Uribe is the new guy in the secondary. Um, I'm going to keep my default schedule. I normally have different schedules based on different things. Like if I think you're stupid, I will jack up the game tape. If I think you're bad at skills, I will push up position drills. Physical, if I think you're weak, I'm going to put you on a physical training plan. athletics if I want speed and so forth. And it's always a good idea to look here, right? Because this gives you a better idea of what it actually does. Um, so that way you know what to do. I'm just going to leave it like it is because I don't feel a need to change this. My default schedule is good for the most part. And then that's really it. That's what you should be doing in this round is really focusing on the position changes, focusing on identifying the people you want to get the most attention from your coaches, and then just identifying if you want to put people on different schedules. Um, the other thing is you really should be focusing on recruiting as well. In this sim, you have one more sim before week one starts, and that, of course, week one is when the first set of recruiting actions happen. So if you do it this sim, you help break it up so you can focus on game planning on the next sim, which is the sim leading into week one. So that's it. Hopefully you like this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I will try to do some other videos just in general, but like around depth charts, which I'll probably do for the week one sim. But hope you find this helpful, and if you do, hit the like button. Also, if you want to join this league, SNCFL is a great league. I highly recommend it, and look forward to seeing you. Have a great night.